Good evening, formally, and welcome to this week's Wellbeing at Home event on this gorgeous day, summer's day, beautiful day. So I took a couple of weeks off, but I'm pleased to be back now and exploring another way that we can lead healthier and happier lives. And if you've been part of our community for a while, it's great to see your familiar names and faces. As always, I always say it, but it really is lovely to see you all. And if you're joining us for the first time, I do hope you enjoy this first event and you'll come back to join us for future events. So those of you who are new, just to say, we do put these events together as a way to help our community empower themselves to be happy and healthy. So we bring on these amazing experts and they share with us lots of their wisdom and knowledge. And it really is about how to take charge of your own health and happiness and learn about preventative health. I mean, we do have a fantastic National Health Service, but it's really there for us when we get sick. So the key is not to get sick. Actually, we should call it the National Sick Service because it's all about staying healthy and not using it if we can. So yeah, we're very privileged to have these great people come and join us and share with us how we can stay happy and healthy. So today's event is all about the healing world of flower essences. And it's always kind of struck me as being a little bit of a mysterious world, which we'll find out more about today. But before we get going, just a few little messages from me. So if you haven't already, please do invite your friends to join our community and also like and subscribe to us on our social media channels like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You just type in Wellbeing Escapes and we'll come up, and then you can just follow us because we really do want to grow our community. We have grown it a lot over the last year, but we'd like to continue to reach as many people as we can with these free events. So do help us spread the word, please. And you can, if you go onto the website, I'll just do a quick share actually, just because I haven't done it for a while, just to remind you how to use the website. And those of you who are new can see it. Okay, let's try this. Here we go. So this is the homepage. Once you've signed in, you get onto this on the homepage, and you see we have all these different categories, and we have our events here. So here you can see Amy's event today, but if you go here and you scroll backwards up here, you can see all the events that we've had in the past. Some of them are paid, but there's a lot of free ones, and you can catch up that way. Or, she says, you can find them in the different categories. So you may be interested in nutrition. So if you click on nutrition, you'll see events that we've run on nutrition before. So you can navigate different ways and find them like that. And then we have our groups, and we've been a little bit lax because we haven't been keeping our groups up to date recently, but we will start again over the next month or so. But here are the groups if you want to join the group. Some of them are private around specific courses that we've run, but some of them are public, like for example yoga, nutrition, and you can just join those groups, and then you get updated when we have new posts in those groups. And this is another one, emotional and mental well-being. That's also a free group. So there's lots and lots of resources. But what I wanted to show you in particular is this forum. I know a lot of you already use this and know how to use it, but please just bear with me. On this forum is specific to you. So whatever group you're part of, you get your own feed. It's kind of like Facebook. But the thing I wanted to show you is if you can actually invite. Can you see up here? I've got email invites. You can send invites out to your friends if you want to share a specific or something like that to come along. So, okay, this is a little refresher. I will stop sharing now, but I just wanted you to see that. So, another couple of things. This morning, we also have the final masterclass on Jordan's series on energy centers with movement and breath work. So we started at the root center, and then we went from root to sacral, to solar plexus, to heart, to throat. And today he did the third eye and crown. And his class is all around movement, but combined with breath work. And I've got to say, they were excellent. And I'm sure those of you who are present will agree with me. But you know, they're still available if you want to purchase the recordings. They're there, and they're very much worth the time, and they're very reasonable. They're £15 per class. So, and then you keep the recording forever. You have lifetime access, so you can just watch it over and over and do it. They're a good workout, but they're also really calming as well with all the breath work, and they activate that specific energy center or chakra that we talked about. Okay, on the travel front, well, it changes every day, doesn't it? It's not boring being in the travel industry right now. But I promise you, it has become easier to travel, especially if you're double vaccinated. So yes, it's not as easy as pre-pandemic, and there are forms to fill out and there are tests to organise. But I've done it, and it isn't really that bad, and I'm doing it again next week. But if you are considering going abroad, I know not everybody wants to do that this year because there is so much uncertainty, but if you are and it feels overwhelming, just call us. We'll be really happy to kind of guide you through what you need to do and tests and all that kind of thing. Okay, so let's start today's event with Amy. As always, if you would like to ask questions, please put them in chat throughout, and I will put them to Amy. And if you don't mind, please keep yourselves on mute so as not to disturb the event. So Amy, hi.
Hello.
Hi, good to see you. I'm going to make you co-host actually, so that you're nice and clear. So good to see you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Remind us where you are.
I'm in Hampshire. I'm near Petersfield. I've come into work today because it's quiet and no children and puppies and dogs. So this is where my business is, just outside of Petersfield.
Lovely. Well, thank you for joining us from Hampshire and Petersfield. So let's start by finding out what got you into this, what I call the mysterious world of flower remedies.
Well, flower remedies called to me, I guess, well, when I was in my teens, I used to buy the bottles, the batch bottles. For those of you who aren't sure what essences are, if you think about Rescue Remedy, that's essences. And I just used to buy the bottles. So I was obviously called to them then, but I just collected them and didn't use them. And then when I was 30, I had my son. And shortly after that, he just wasn't quite himself. And a friend recommended to me that I give him some essences. Didn't know what they were. And I was popping them into his drink. And within about 24 hours, 48 hours, Riley was back to himself again. He was this happy, contented chap. And then I just wanted to learn more, because what really drew me to them is that he didn't know he was taking anything. So I could see it working without me telling him. He was too young for me to say. We often say to young children that they're your happy drops, but he wouldn't have understood that at all at that point. And so I just began this wonderful journey, never expecting it to end up where it is now, which is still going, but developed into a business. So it's just something I was interested in at the time.
How interesting that you actually collected them but didn't use them.
Yeah.
You used to buy the bottles.
Yeah.
Why? Because you just like the look of them.
I liked the look of them. One of the main ones I remember buying several times, because I think I was very scatty back then and a bit messy, was oak. And oak is one of my favourite essences. It's also my favourite tree. When I'm needing to kind of tune in to nature, it's the oak or the yew tree that I step under, so I just didn't, I guess I was too young. And also we didn't know about anything like this back then, Bach was really still under the radar. No one really used rescue remedy, so it just wasn't really heard of.
I remember my mum buying it for me when I was taking exams at school.
Yeah.
I had no idea what it was. I was like, oh, what is this stuff that you're making, have? And I'll tell the group, I was calling it Bach, like the composer Bach, until I heard Amy say, no, it's Bach. So, okay.
Oh, well, Bach or Batch or Bach, it really doesn't matter.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Okay. Okay.
Everyone knows, especially if you say rescue remedy, everyone knows what you're talking about anyway, so it's okay.
Yeah. So he's interesting, Dr. Bach, because he has a great story in his own right, doesn't he? Because he was a medical doctor, and this was in the 1930s.
That's right.
And he decided to leave his own medical practice and dedicate his life to kind of researching all of these flower essences can help us holistically, I guess.
Yes, he discovered that within his own practice, he could see that people were it was how they approached their illnesses that they would come in for. So somebody was approaching it with anger, someone might be resentful, someone might be accepting, and he was recognizing that the way that our emotional state could help or hinder the way that we would heal, or if we weren't meant to heal, then how we would cope with that particular journey. Essences have been around for centuries, and he just started to work with those. He went off to Wales, came back with I think 3 or 4, and started using them on his clients, and packed up a very successful and lucrative business, and went and lived in Mount Vernon near Oxford, making his essences. With a very frugal life then. But he believed so much in it. We have so much to be grateful for with him, because for us as essence producers, he especially, and I know I talk about rescue remedy, but it's the one that everyone knows. So, it's their work has really enabled us to go out there and be producers and makers and therapists with it all. So yeah.
So he approached it largely from the emotional perspective, right? Emotional and mental perspective, because he saw that as being very powerful in actually helping the physical ailment, physical illness. Yeah. So the flower essences really help us on that emotional and mental level rather than a physical level.
Yes, we have.
I mean, they're all intertwined anyway. But
yes, but we're not allowed to make any physical claims anyway. But I mean, we all kind of know, don't we, that if your mental state is in a mess, your body can't do what it needs to do. So essences help bring you back to that balance, so that your body can cope with what's going on. It's really a very simple way of working. It's really very lovely. It's not complicated in any way, just tuning into the vibrations of nature.
But I think that term alone is quite alien to a lot of people. It's interesting because we've been talking about this a lot since we started the Wellbeing at Home sessions, about how your mental and emotional state does impact your physical state, but it's only recently, even in the medical world, being considered seriously. In the past, it's not something that anyone would have even talked about. So I should say anyone, but most medical professionals would have talked about it. So it's only now kind of becoming prevalent in the world of healing, so to speak. But then you say something else there about vibrational and healing, and again, that's quite a big concept for a lot of people to take and understand, because we haven't been taught. We're taught about kind of material, physical things. So the whole idea of energy and frequency and vibration, a lot of people can't get their heads around that. It's quite a difficult thing to understand, even though nowadays, like we have quantum physicists that basically saying that we're all energy. I mean, this is all, you know, they're publishing more and more information around that. But do you find that as a bit of a barrier?
Well, I do talk very briefly about quantum physics because I am not a science head at all. I find that, well, there's two ways I talk about it to people, I guess. And one is with the quantum physics, I talk about that it's easier for me to think of the energy of plants and trees and water and places than it is my computer and, you know, building materials. But that is all quantum physics. It's different vibrations coming together to create different matter. But I guess the easiest way, if you don't want to think about or can't grasp it that way, is vibration is what you get from each other. So when you're with someone that brings you joy just by being with them, it's their vibration is helping to raise your vibration. When you're with that person, or you know, use the term energy vampires, they are of a different vibration, and they are pulling on your vibration to bring them up, but reducing yours in that way. So if you start to be very aware about who is not good for you, that's their vibration that you're picking up on. And most people then start to go, oh yeah, okay, that I can get that, because it's in our world all the time. We're constantly meeting people that are wonderful for us and are not wonderful for us. And it's being aware of that. And it's just their vibration. So
a vibe, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's a funky way of saying it, but it's like the people, like you say, I'm a bit more blunt, people who suck the life out of you.
Yeah.
You know, people who just drain you, I guess, have that different vibration, as you say, for them to raise themselves, but you feel sucked out of. That's interesting. So then we can understand that whole concept of vibration and energy. And again, throughout the community, all of our events, we've done a lot on Chinese medicine and Ayurveda. You know, they cover that a lot. You know, ancient medical practices covered the concept of energy. So it's not new to a lot of people.
And they all work well together, actually. So, I mean, I mix the modalities that I use at home all the time. I don't just stick to essences if I need something else. If I might need some homeopathy to come in with my essences, you know, I go and have acupuncture, you know, I have reflexology. You can mix all sorts of things together. I call it your well-being toolbox. So it's brilliant to know as much as you can. And, you know, if you're working with essences and the vibrations of the plants, you've got that as a tool to call on when you need it. I should say, actually, so each plant has its own vibration, each tree, each crystal, each environment, and what you're using is their vibration to help rebalance yours and bring back yourself from the negative to the positive, so that you can be the best you can be.
So this is the subtlety of it. Okay, so instead of, you know, I guess if you have a herb and you ingest that herb, for example, you know, it has specific properties that will affect your digestion or whatever it may be. And the same with essential oils, we'll talk about that later. But I guess this is the subtlety of flower essences. You're not actually, tell us how they're made. Just tell us how they're made.
Okay. So most producers use the sunshine method, although you can make them in the moon as well. And a day like today is perfect. So you gather your plant early in the morning, your flower, depending on the size of your bowl. And can you see my hands? I use a bowl only about that big. So you might only need a little one. You tend to try and cover the surface with your flowers that you've chosen to use. So you pop your flowers onto the water. We use mineral water. We don't, or spring water. We don't use tap water. And then the sun does this lovely magic by transporting the energy of the plant into the water. And we know a lot more now about water holding memory. Trying to think of it'll come back to me, the name of the scientists who did that. But water the water's molecular structure changes to hold whatever it's passing through or wherever it is. And the wonderful thing is that science is now realizing that. And so for those people who weren't sure, science is coming up to prove it to us, which is great. So the essence has gone basically into the water. And if you've ever tasted Rescue Remedy, you'll notice it's got brandy in it. And we use alcohol. Most of us use brandy, but you can use vodka as well. And that preserves the essence down. And that's it. It's so very simple. And then you take the drops under your tongue to get them into your energetic system. Or you put them into a spray. I put them into sprays as well. And there's all sorts of different ways you can actually take them once you've made them.
So I guess the difference is, like, using the herb analogy, the herb, example, whereas the herb, you're actually ingesting something physical, a physical property of that herb that will help your health in whichever way. Here you're actually taking in the energetic essence of the flower or the plant.
Yes. So the properties of herbs are more of a physical nature. I take Agnus castus, for example, every day to help me, and that helps me physically.
Yeah.
And because there's been so much work done on that, they can make those claims as well. They can, yes, and we help just to rebalance. I say just to. It's quite a big shift, and you can have it can be very, very subtle, or very big. The shift can really, really happen quite quickly. So
yeah. And I've got a question from Amanda. How long do you leave the flower in the bowl?
It depends. Usually for me it's 2 hours roughly. We're going to talk a little bit about dowsing, but I douse to see, or you can mentally ask, and that will tell you how long. It'll tell you whether it's ready or not, because you're tuning in by then. If you've chosen the flower to make an essence from, it's a good idea to always ask before. I know that sounds a bit, as my husband calls it, hoochie coochie, but it's you're asking permission before you pick it, before you collect the plant and to use the energy. So.
Yeah. And so, okay, so I'm going to take you back a bit again, because you trained yourself as a Bach therapist.
Yeah.
And what did you learn during that time? So you learned about all the different essences and the different, vibration of the different plants. And
I only learnt batch range ones. So in a way it was a little limiting, but not in terms of its wonderful knowledge of essences itself. I then went on and did the practitioner course as well. So then I learned how to be a practitioner and how to do consultations, which I still do. But the call to make them happened a few years after that, because my background is fine art. So I just love to make anything. And I was working as a photographer at the time, so I was still in a very creative job, and I think the trigger was we just got my dog Jelly. She's 11 now. So for the first time ever, I was walking every single day and starting to really tune into nature in a very different way to when I'd just kind of gone out to meet friends or what have you. And that's when the plants started calling to me to make them. So
you just felt a really strong intuition to really.
It was literally like I would walk past one and it was this little voice going, "It's my turn today, can you make one for me?" And I was just like, it was an alien world to me, really. And this is what's so lovely. It's not something that's all come naturally, or it wasn't there in place for me, I should say. But once I started in it, all the stepping stones just fell into place, and here I am, and really meant to be.
Yeah, how would you, before you started your company, how would you use them in your day-to-day life? So tell us what are they good for?
Very good. So I was using them for general everyday stresses. For me, I was a mum with 2 small children, so I was using them a lot then. And I was just using them on friends and family. People would just say to me, "Oh, this is going on in my life," and I was, "Oh, why don't you try this?" So we just use them on a day-to-day basis, really, just in a natural way. I always have them out on the counter or in a basket so that they're accessible, so that you can just pick up what's needed. Always done that and still do that. I've got them laid out here in front of me today. So they're just, it's an easy way to work. And when people often say to me, I don't think I'll remember to take them, so I often put them by the kettle. We're all by the kettle a lot, you know, so making them in a place, to putting them in a place where it's accessible, you see them, you're reminded, and you just quickly take your drops.
And are the results instantaneous? So, for example, if you're feeling anxious and you take one for anxiety, do you immediately feel calm? Or
everyone is different.
Okay.
Everyone is different. With the Tranquility, was my anxiety one. I would say most people do kind of start to come down. I call it coming down off the crazy. You know, the head starts to steady down and breathing starts to happen. A lot of people like to use the spray because we're going to talk about essential oils, but you can't help with a spray to inhale. So when you're inhaling, you're just for that split second, you're stopping the madness. So, but some people find it might take a week or so. When you're taking a combination that you've kind of put together for yourself, or your therapist or myself has done, we usually say take that for 7 to 10 days at least, because you need to give it a good go to get your energetic system balanced. And it might be that you need to keep on different essences for a while as a support mechanism for yourself. Children seem to react quite quickly because they don't have all the layers that we have. So which is useful. Yeah.
And how would, there's a couple of questions that come in. So for example, Claudia says, how do people know what to use? Do they have to have a consultation with a practitioner? So, like Claudia says, what does each plant stand for? For example, if she puts rose petals in water, what does that do? Is there a place that you can find that information out?
Usually so on my website, I put down what everything is for. All essence producers do that. So whichever one you're on, so say you're looking at release, I talk about where it's come from and what it's good for, and the properties. You can even type in, if you wanted to know what rose is good for, it's a good idea to try and start tuning in yourself. And if you like to meditate or just sit quietly, you'll sit next to the plant that you want to make an essence from. You start to get little messages through, or writing is really good when you're sat by the plant and you zone out of the world and into the plant. Things come through that way. That's the way I do it often. But if you want to find more specific when you're starting, often if you type in rose essence or lavender essence, up will come lots of producers that do that, and there you've got your information.
Okay, so that's a good segue into the next topic, which is, for example, lavender essence. How is lavender essence different to lavender essential oil? So
essential oil is the physical part of the plant it's been put through the distilling process if you're using the floral water, and to gather the oil from it that way. And sometimes plants are crushed to get their essential oils as well. So that's the more physical part of the plant. They do carry some vibration with them, obviously, because the plant has its vibration. And the essences are purely the vibration. There's no taste to them. There's no smell to them at all. They are purely the vibration. So.
Well, interesting. It is kind of really subtle. It's kind of, a lot of people will see it as out there because it's something that we haven't been taught to understand or be aware of, but it is so
and as I said, it's been there for centuries, and the Buddhists used to use this way of working a lot. And so by the time you climbed up to their temple and you chatted with the Buddhists there, and they were finding out why you were there, they would often then go around to their gardens and make you an essence and give you that to take home. So it's not new. It's like herbalism isn't new. It's just herbalism has managed to keep out there on the radar a lot more. But the Egyptians used to do it. The Greeks, the ancient Greeks. It's a very old way of working. all the Russian medicine doctors that used to travel, they would work on it that way.
Just been forced underground, and
Yeah.
now it's rearing its head again. It's beautiful.
And yet we're also we all find it easy to use the right flowers for different celebrations and things like that, don't we? So we still have flowers in our lives, and it's just simply tapping into that again and just looking at why we might be growing a flower, why a flower might be springing up all over your garden, because it's probably going, you need me, you need my energy. So I understand it's a bit it's very out there, but it's just, for me now, it's just a natural part of my life. So,
and how do you incorporate that into your life? So, well, actually, before we get into that, let's talk about the different reasons that you would use flower essences for. So Amanda's asking here, what would you recommend for anxiety, for example? So anxiety is one.
Anxiety is a big one, and everybody is affected by that in some way or another. From my range of essences, I would use Tranquility, which is for stress and anxiety. It's almost the equivalent to Rescue Remedy, I would say, in the way I use it. For people who come to me and they've never used essences before, usually Tranquility comes up, and it, as I said earlier, it just sort of brings you down so that other things can come up that you can then start to deal with. Peace is a good one. Again, peace is very good for the overload, when you just feel that it's all too much, and the pressure on your aura, on your energetic system, you just feel under attack a little bit. So that's very good for when you're anxious as well. And I've just seen a question with Tranquility. It's I have got impatiens, lavender, walnut, and daisy as essences. So if I talk through, I won't go through every single one, so I've got 30, but that one, just to show you how it's come together. Daisy is for scattered thoughts, and we have a process that we call the Doctrine of Signatures, which is where we look at a plant to see how it's growing, to see what its characteristics are. And sometimes they're really obvious, sometimes they're really not. So you have to tune in a bit deeper. But if you think about daisies pop up all over the lawn, everywhere, in a really big scattered formation. And so it's about bringing all those scattered thoughts back into one. Because when you're anxious, your brain is all over the place. Lavender is, it works in a very similar way to the essential oil, in that it's very calming. It's also very good if you're picking up everybody else's stuff, which again, when we're in an anxious state, our barriers are down. I call my energetic shield. That's not working as well as it should. So you've got all this stuff coming at you. Walnut. So my tree essences, I don't make with the tree as such. There's a boiling method that Bach does, but and some of my friends who are producers still do that way. I put the water bowls within the trees so that's picking up the energy around that way. So often people ask me with walnut about nut allergies. There's no nuts in any way, but walnut is very, very grounding. And if you think about that shell, it's strong and protective. It's a really hard protective shell. So again, it helps when you're anxious to be bringing it up that way. And then lastly, impatiens. It's the wild impatiens. If any of you are familiar with that, it grows by rivers a lot. It's beautiful pink and purple, but it takes over everything. No one wants it in their garden. No one wants it really outside in nature, because it rapidly grows and takes over everything. But the most impatient part of the flower is when it's seeding. It fires its seeds, so everything is quick, bang, let's go. And when you're stressed, you're usually on a very short fuse, and impatiens is very key. So that's how I kind of look at bringing them together. Though a lot of my original essences, I was sent in a download that just happened to come one night, which I've never had before, and they all just came as a set.
We just went to the note and said, use this, and this, and you
literally
exactly what to use. But hasn't that been built over the years of, I guess, tuning in to the? I mean, it sounds to me like it's a combination of intuition,
yes,
and also studying
yes,
the plants and understanding the plants and knowing what should go
Although
where.
with these, when I started making them, I was just making almost obsessively. And a lot of them, I didn't know what they did at the time. So then when I was told to put them together, which was a very weird thing for me because I'd never had a download like that before. And then it was after that I went and researched or tuned into the plants to see what they did. And they all came together to do what the name, I was even given the names.
Wow.
Tranquility and peace.
So you woke up in the middle of the night and just had the names and knew exactly
what to put 2 or 3 in the morning. And I just wrote. I went and just wrote and then just went back to bed. I think it took about an hour.
That's like a composer, isn't it? Someone like a composer of music who just has it all come to them and they write it all down and they play it, and it's your composition.
I tell you what, you really, having had it like that, I would love to just be able to just like, okay, come on, let's have it. And it doesn't come like that anymore. It comes in bits and pieces, you know. Right. So I've had to learn to, again, be patient and, you know, just wait and see what comes through. So, and I'd never ever worked in that way before. It was all so new, but I wasn't worried about it. I wasn't frightened of it. It just felt in my solar plexus. It was okay. No, this is okay.
That's what you need to do, yeah. And so coming back to Tranquility, which I have to say, guys, I have some here. Something I prepared earlier, actually. Something Amy prepared earlier, not me. And I spray it all the time, and it is divine. It smells amazing. It's so lovely. I love this. I'm always spraying it throughout the day. But coming back to this, so if you suffer from anxiety, you think this is like, you would recommend this is the product that you use, for example, how would you do it? Through the spray, through the drops, both?
Everyone is different, and that's why I quite quickly realized that not everybody wants to take drops, and for some people it's just too out there to start with energetic drops. So I started to blend them with essential oils. Again, no aromatherapy training at that point. It was all done on intuition, and Tranquility was the first blend I ever made. And I pop the drops into there. Everything I do, whether it's the face oil or the rollerballs or the lip balm, or the body oils as well, they've all got essences in. So it's a different way to get them into your energetic system. So it just allows you to tune into what you need. Some people, I've got some customers who will only ever use the sprays because they say that's the way it works. I have others who will use the drops and then back it up with a spray. Some who just do body oil. So it's quite a difficult question to answer because everyone is different. Lots of people carry the rollerballs in their handbag. They're useful for when you're traveling. I use them on the underground. When I used to go on the underground, haven't been for 2 years with everything, but yeah, so everyone is different.
That's really, really interesting. So do they have any side effects?
No physical side effects, although if you're holding something, they will allow it to be released. So I've had clients sob for a long time over a few days. Had some who've had like small tummy upsets because the stress is releasing. Some have headaches. Again, it's usually just releasing and letting go of what you've been energetically holding. And I feel like I would say with Tranquility, with anxiety, I should say, whilst I recommend that as the main one and peace, it really depends on what your anxiety, where the root of the anxiety is coming from. So often I say we'll start with those, and as I said, something will come up. It might be that you're really lacking in confidence, so you need to work on that. So you might then start using faith, or it might be that you're not trusting in your environment. So then you might have to use something like tenderness to help release your barriers, and that might be causing you anxiety. So everyone is different with anxiety. Anxiety is a biggie, isn't it, really?
Yeah, sure. And I think everyone suffers from it in some form at some point in their life. So how do you, sorry, I keep coming back to, how do you know which one to pick?
Right, that's so you just let your intuition kick in here. Some people are very literal and they'll read the brochure or the website and they'll go, that's it, because it says everything I need it to say. For some people, it's well, for me, it's like the name just pops out slightly from the page, if you know what I mean. And then quite often when I do stalls and markets, or I have my shop here, that when people are talking to me about what they need, they've usually picked up the one that they need because they haven't been thinking about it. And then I will douse to see, and it's always the one that they're holding. So because they've let their soul speak, if you like, their intuition come forward and go, that's what we need, we really need that, can we have that please?
So or you switch off our minds and go into our intuition to really feel what it is that we think is right for us. Trust what's right for us. Okay. Exactly. There's another question here. Can you use them in conjunction with conventional medicines?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, my husband had cancer 3 years ago, and all through his treatment, he chose to have the full treatment they were offering him, and we supported him with essences. So that helped his emotional state while he was going through all his treatment. So they're a really great thing to have to emotionally support you.
Because I guess, Sheena, there's no physical properties to them, so they're just the essences and the vibrations. So I guess there's no harm in that. That's interesting. Now, you can use them with pets, right?
You can, yep. I don't use the sprays with my animals, although I'll spray the room down when they're not in it. I have a friend who uses the Serenity spray in her car because her puppy gets travel sick, and that seems to be really settling him down. But the drops you can pop into their water. You can pop them onto your hand and stroke your pet as well. If any of you do Reiki and healing, you can pop them onto your hands and you can call it zapping them in. So there's all different ways. They're really good, actually. Rescue Remedy is great when with fireworks for animals. And I use Tranquility then, although the older my lab's got, she doesn't even, she's not bothered by it at all, but initially. And, you know, when you're moving house, someone new is coming in, all those things, you can use them that way. Yeah. You can also use essences, and whilst they don't smell, so if you have a lovely blend that you like to put in your diffuser, you can pop the essences into your diffuser so that it's sending the energy out into your...
So it's almost using them in combination with essential oils, right? So you can use an essential oil blend and put your essences on top, and then you have a double benefit, you know. That's really interesting. Now, how about plants? I have a friend who uses she did a course herself in essences, and she uses them on her plants, where she said her plants are struggling, and then she sees her plants start to bubble, which I guess makes sense.
Yeah, it does, especially when you're repotting. So I sometimes use Tranquility when a plant's had a bit of a hissy fit because it doesn't want to be moved, and that you can use them that way because they have come from plants. I mean, they're perfect to use on them because they know the vibration. So so you were doing all of this before you decided to start your business, right? Before you started Nature's Wish. And then the training, yes.
You did the training, and then you were just kind of making your own thing on the side for your own use and your friends and family. And then you started Nature's Wish. How many years ago?
2010.
Okay, so almost 11 years.
Yeah. And
we know how you come up with your own blends of essences. Do you make them all by hand?
Yes.
They're all individually made.
Yep. It's really important with the essences that you make them like that. Even as big as Bach have got, if any of you get to go to Mount Vernon, you can see his home, and they make all the mother essences there, because it's not something that a machine can ever make. A machine can bottle them for you, but you have to make them, and you have to be in the right space to make them energetically, you know. So, and you don't need a huge amount of flowers, especially when you're doing it for yourself. You know, you really don't need a lot. So people are under the impression I have an enormous garden, which I would love, but I don't have a big garden, but it's plenty of space to grow what I need. So
you grow all of the plants and flowers yourself, and you make them by
yes,
hand?
yes.
Oh,
And then the trees, they're all local trees. I don't have a walnut near me, but within 20 minutes drive, my friend has a beautiful one in a garden, which just stands alone with this lovely backdrop of fields. It's like a postcard picture, you know. So I sit there and make the essence there with walnut. So there's keep it as local as I can. The only one that isn't local is Port Isaac in Cornwall. That's the release essence, and I go there and make the essence there. It picks up the energy of the sea vibration, and it's for when we are telling ourselves the negative stops, if you like, to our energy. Like, I can't do that. I'm not good enough. I'll never be able to. I'm not going to get the job. They're not going to like me. You know, all these things that we program ourselves with. And the sea energy, because it just keeps that lovely flow, it helps to just pass that through and break that through. So, and the other one is from a piece of crystal that I picked up at the Temple of Aphrodite. So otherwise they're pretty local.
In Cyprus, you see, we were meet.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah. So, Amanda says, what happens if there's no sunshine? You do them with the moon as well, you said, right?
You can do them with the moon. So I have a very good friend, her whole range is done under the full moon. There are certain plants that only come out for one day, and you have to make an essence with them. So I've, whether it's raining or not, sunny or not, sorry. So sometimes, because my iris, they flower very, very short time. And so I have been known to get a piece of glass, which is propped up with some bricks, and then the iris is in the water, so it's protected from any of the rain coming in. Although actually, it wouldn't matter really with the rain. And then I use the energy that way. I find they take longer, but it doesn't matter. So if you're out walking, or people have gone up mountains, and they don't get the weather that they need to get that orchid essence, for example, there's different ways around it. It's a standard way is doing it in the sun. So I tend to wait. I'm always watching the weather at this time of year to see. And earlier on, a couple of weeks ago, it was just constant rain, and I'm looking at certain flowers I know are only out for 1 or 2 weeks, slightly pulling my hair out, but I got there. You get the window. So
yes, is another good question. Very good question today, Amanda. Thank you. Do the essences have a shelf life?
No, we have to put a shelf life on them because they're classed as a foodstuff. So if you've got a bottle of Rescue Remedy that's been with you for 20 years, just don't throw it away. You'll know when it's gone off because it just won't taste good. So smell it and check it. But they've been preserved with brandy, so they won't go off. And I've known people throw whole set. There was a lady that came to one of my workshops on essences, and I was saying this, and she just went, "Oh no!" and she'd thrown a whole set away of all 38 batch essences.
Oh no!
Because we're so led by that little date, but it's just one of the things we have to adhere to on our labels. So
yeah,
ignore them. Basically,
ignore the shelf. Okay, good. Now you tell us about the dowsing, because again, that's quite an interesting concept for a lot of people to get their heads around. And I mentioned to you, I've been playing a little bit with the dowser recently, just to kind of experiment. But tell us how you use the dowser, and also tell us that story. I love that story that you told me about the man at Greyshot.
Oh yes. Thank you for reminding me. I was thinking, which story did I tell you?
Hey, that's such a great story. Yeah.
Well, firstly, dowsing. Some of you will know about the divining dowsing rods where you're finding water. And I dowse with a crystal or a pendulum, which is the same, using the same energy. I've got this one here. I've got a crystal one here. I'll also dowse with keys, or you just need a heavy necklace. It doesn't have to be any particular dowsing crystal, and you just find your yes or no. So that's my yes. You can see if I ask for my no, that's my no. So when you asked me earlier, how do I know which essences to take? Most of the time now, because I guess I'm so familiar with them, I just know. But sometimes you're talking with the ego. So this is a really good way of removing the ego, especially if you're dowsing for someone in your family. If my husband's really annoying me, and then, you know, and I'm like, right, you need that one. That's my ego going, you know, I want you to behave in this particular way. This removes that. I was chatting with someone last night that was saying, how does it work? We don't know. No one can give a definitive answer. But for me, it's like connecting with my higher power, my universal energy, and my soul. And it's
your intuition again, right?
Exactly.
So
yeah. Same thing. Yeah.
Through with that. But again, it's quite a novel idea for many people to get their head around that. Tell everybody the story about the man at the grey shop. It's such a great story.
So he'd come along to the talk expecting to be taught about essential oils, and he was very, I talk about the energy and vibration. He was very negative, could just feel it oozing off him through the whole talk. And at the end, I chatted about choosing essences through dowsing. And he just piped up and said, well, you're turning that, you're making it up, you're making it do that. I want you to show me. So he came up to the front. I cleansed my dowser down, so it didn't have any of my energy on it. I handed it to him and I taught him how to do the yes. And he almost took a step back and just went, I'm not doing that, and was so freaked out by it. But the most wonderful thing was that when he left the room, he turned around and looked back at me and said, I now have to rethink everything, because his whole world had just been, which had been so obviously so very logical. Now this other stuff was happening that he couldn't explain, and none of us we can't definitively explain it. So that's my best realization of dowsing, that anyone can do it, and even people who don't want to do it. Clearly his soul was going, actually, I want to do this, if you don't mind, so his ego was shifted out of the way and his soul was allowed to express itself, which was really lovely.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. So as part of your ongoing development, your own development, you spend a lot of time in nature, don't you, yourself? Yeah. Just connecting with nature to get those messages, to know what you're going to do next with your, development of your own essences. And I know you're working on development of new essences, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, there are wise women. They're called wise women essences. So it is a range that's it's about bringing our deeper feminine to the fore, that we often quash down. It's about working in a feminine way and not in the masculine way that we've all been trained to work in, and to support ourselves. So I've got one called womb and dance and all sorts of beautiful essences that are going to work again with the chakras as well. Interestingly, I started making those, most of them are dahlia essences, 2 or 3 years ago, and I wasn't allowed to actually bring them together until this year, because every time I dowsed on it, it was like, no, not ready yet. And then this year, so I'm just working on the branding for that, and then they will be released to the world, which I'm really excited about.
You see, that's so interesting. Again, your approach to that, it's so different to everything we've been trained and thought to do. Like you create, for example, a product, for want of a better word, and you have a plan about when you're going to get it out, but you're following your intuition, and through your dowsing, you're being told it's not ready yet.
Yeah.
Sit on it. It's just so interesting.
But it does frustrate me, because my human head and my ego is going, no, come on, we're going to do this now. But my soul, my dowser is going, no, we're just going to wait, because it's not the right time. And interestingly, in that time, I did 2 years of training with working as a priestess, which is working with nature. So I hadn't realized I needed to do and finish and complete all of that, and it's all come together at the same time. So it was meant to be this way, but my brain didn't want it to be. But the universe is saying, no, it's not ready yet. So
yeah. Well, that's, this has been a really interesting Yvonne, thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. It's just, I think it's such a lovely thing to experiment with yourself as well. I mean, it's inspired me to want to do that, to make my own essences as well as obviously buy your own lovely products. But it's just, yeah, it's a lovely creative thing to try as well, and connect yourself with nature. And I know lots of people who try and well, as you said with water, it's a Japanese scientist, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
And he put the water in an environment that was really horrible and nasty, and it changed the molecular structure of the water.
Dr. Emoto, his name's just come to me.
Yes. That's it. So we'll share that on the forum. Actually, I'll put those details on the forum. There's really interesting studies, and it shows
beautiful images, and
really interesting. So when the water was in a really calm and peaceful and beautiful environment, the molecular structure came into this like beautiful, as you say, beautiful images. And when it was in a place which was just not nice and chaotic, it looked chaotic. The molecular structure, it's all this stuff we don't really know. They're finding more and more about it. But I have the lady who started and runs Euphoria Retreat, Marina, in Greece, and she does a lot with her own water, and she blesses it, and she puts crystals in it, and she does, because she had cancer and she got through it, but she uses that as a means of kind of blessing her water. So it's that similar concept in a way, isn't it?
It's very similar.
Vibrational concept around the water, but we will share that. But it's been really interesting. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for having an open mind with this. It's fascinating stuff. It really, really is. And before you go, you've set up a code for us to use. If we want to buy any of your products, you get a 15% discount, and it's Wellbeing 15. Again, I'll put that out on the forum, and I'll follow up in the recording when I send the newsletter out. So if you want to try the products, I've tried the products, so they're great. And I've got to say, the one, the Rejuvenate one, I've been using the drops of the Rejuvenate one, which is to get through stressful periods, which I'm obviously have been going through the last period of time. But I started to have quite vivid dreams. I mentioned it to you after having these drops. And so I felt like things were kind of clearing from my subconscious, and just stuff was coming out. It's really subtle. It's really interesting. Just have an open mind with it.
Yeah.
So
it's working with nature is just a beautiful thing.
It's the best. It's the best. Maybe you'll do a workshop for us one day. Will you be open?
I'd love to. Yeah.
With some essences we can try ourselves, and I don't know, we'll talk about that, and maybe we can bring that out to everybody. But thank you everyone for coming along. Thank you, Amy, for your time and your wisdom. It's been brilliant. Have a lovely weekend. Enjoy this like glorious sunshine. Don't get sunburnt, please. It's pretty hot out there. And next week we have something a bit different. We have a 5 elements dance. We're going to be dancing, ladies. I know, Lorraine, you love your dancing. So it's going to be like a different thing, and that's going to be streamed live from Greece at the Euphoria Retreat, where they're doing this whole Feel Alive campaign again, and they're trying to get us to all kind of start feeling alive and moving post-pandemic. So we'll be doing that next Saturday, but it'll be in the morning. It'll be at 10 o'clock, because otherwise it's too late for them in Greece. We're into 7 o'clock at night, and their teacher wants to go home. So I'll send details out of that. But thanks everyone for being here. Thanks again, Amy. Have a beautiful weekend, and see you again soon. Lots of love.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.